And we are live. Sales Wisdom Pod with Ryan Cartwright. He's sales and partnership at SpaceLift, aka Director of Sales there. He's also an LP in various funds. We're going to discuss about that cool investments that Ryan made right there. Brian is in California, if I'm not mistaken, Sausalito. Never heard of Sausalito, Ryan. You might want us to introduce to that little town and introduce us.
Yeah, Charles, thanks for having me. So again, Ryan Cartwright, I lead the sales and partnerships teams at SpaceLift. We're VC-backed infrastructure as code startup focused on developer tooling and cloud infrastructure. I live in Sausalito, so for anyone that's been in San Francisco, it's the first little town just across the Bay Bridge. So people typically ridden their bikes over the bridge, came down to Sausalito, and then taking the ferry back into the city.
Love it, dude. So first question I asked, what were your objectives this weekend? Are you on track to reach them?
So objectives this weekend are prepare. I just had a newborn. She just turned 1 month. So my parents are coming in town from Maryland. So my main objective is get the house in order and prepare for the parents to come, and just get prepared for our board meeting. We just closed out Q2 at SpaceLift on Monday. So just closing out the books and cleaning up Salesforce, getting it ready for figure out what's in commit, what's in best case, and make sure that the team Salesforce hygiene is in order.
Love it. In the sales department nowadays, I mean, you're in charge of partnerships and sales. So tell us about your role specifically there. What are your functions? What KPIs are you focused on?
Yeah, good question. So I'm in a unique position where I joined about 1.5 years ago as sales hire number 1 and had the opportunity to be kind of player coach and transition from founder-led sales to first sales hire. Since then, the team has grown significantly. I have 7 folks now on the team in the account executives across Europe and US, and I also have a head of alliances and channel that's focused on partnerships. And so to me, primary objective number 1 is meet and exceed the ARR or annual recurring revenue goals of SpaceLift. Build, recruit, and retain the team, and also build strong alliances and we have a culture of experimentation. So we have a strong alliance with AWS where we spend a lot of our energy on the partnership side and start to launch different channel reseller referral programs and figuring out what works and doesn't work and what that means to SpaceLift.
How do you experiment with partnerships at scale? Is it about sending a bunch of outreach, hitting the negotiation table and seeing what kind of deal we can win-win out of with X brand that I have some customer overlap with?
It's definitely not spray and pray. So it's really focused on, do they have a partnership already with AWS, Amazon Web Services? Those would be a natural fit. And then if they meet that first gate, do they have a cloud center of excellence or a DevOps practice where we're speaking the same language in terms of DevOps, infrastructure as code, cloud native, cloud migrations? And then of course, it's all about, do we have or can we get a mutual customer? Customers are at the center of everything. So if we have a mutual customer, we can move mountains to do things. If we don't, we try to start small. Maybe it's co-marketing in the form of blogging, co-sponsoring events, or just ideating where we can find some wins. Maybe it's some account sharing list.
Right. Maybe it would help the audience also to know what SpaceLift is into before I ask my next question that's related with partnership.
Yeah, so SpaceLift, we're a 3.5-year-old company. We tag ourselves as the most flexible infrastructure as code management platform. What that really means is we are a purpose-built CI/CD solution for infrastructure as code. If anyone that's in the cloud native space or public cloud, they've probably heard of open source tooling like Terraform or things like Ansible or Kubernetes. That's the space that we play in. If you're deploying your apps and infrastructure to a cloud provider, You can either go to the console and do ClickOps, or you can have an infrastructure as code GitOps model and store everything in Git and have a systematic, repeatable approach.
Right. For the partnerships, let's say that we have a customer overlap. What would be a good partnership? Like, okay, if you want to go with SpaceLift, you get 10-15% off. What would be a good deal and a different deal than what most partners offer nowadays?
Yeah, so when I think of partnerships, and specifically, that's a large umbrella. And then I kind of decouple into the alliances, which we have the cloud alliances, and then the reseller or channel program. Within channel, there's the typical distribution model, there's resellers, there's referral partners, there's managed service providers. We do not have any professional services bench within SpaceLift. So if we are selling SaaS, we're a B2B SaaS solution, driving ARR. If they have a reseller model plus a professional services implementation team, that's a natural fit. So we have our swim lanes, and we have alignment on putting the customer first. They can leverage our software, we're best of breed technology, and they can leverage their technical industry expertise to do implementation of implementing these different tool stacks.
And is it just financial incentives like refer us, implement us, and you'll get 15% of the net worth of the transaction?
So in some cases, we'll do referral programs. So we started with referral programs where we'll pass incentives to the end customer. Other partners may have a more mature reseller organization where we'll pass 5, 10, 15, upwards of 30% of margin to that partner, depending if we use their paper, we use our paper, if they refer us, or if we refer to them. We want to create value and not just exchange value.
What percentage of your time is spent on partnerships vs other GTM activities nowadays?
So when I first joined, probably about a quarter of my time was spent on partnerships. Now that I've brought on a head of alliance and channel, it's less. I have a person that is an industry expert in that area that I have full confidence and trust in. So it's probably partial percentage of one day. It depends on the week, depends on the month. Last week, I came back from paternity leave. I went out to New York for AWS Summit. So spent a full day in New York, one day just at a booth at the Javits Center, focused on meeting customers and partners. The day before, we spent at the AWS office working and just collaborating with other partners in the ecosystem just to share knowledge. So it depends on the day of the week. It's usually it's a non-zero percentage of my time every day. It could be 10%, it could be 100% of the day. It just depends on the day.
Right. And can you calculate ROI of partnerships even in the short term, or it's, as I think of it, as medium and long-term ROI?
It's definitely a medium to long-term ROI. I think that's one of the challenges that I've seen and learned over my experience in the industry. I've been now a serial first-time sales hire, and I've learned a few things of managing the expectations of founders and the board. It's not like within marketing or sales, you put up a gated piece of content, you get an MQL, it's an immediate, you see it go from 0 to 1, or you sign a new customer and you see the revenue go from not having a customer to having a customer to certain ARR. With partnerships, especially within the AWS relationship, the first year there's a lot of give and going through the program and putting some skin in the game. Then you start to get some ROI and feedback. We're starting to see ROI from our events in the form of both leads, customers, and revenue.
Let's talk about advisorship. You started advising a couple of startups a couple of years ago. Why did you get into advisorship? And then we'll talk about your direct investments and the difference between that and advisorship.
So two things. One is I'm kind of a lifelong learner. So a few years ago, I went back and got my MBA at University of North Carolina, Keenan Flagler. Part of that program, everyone, even the professors, like, we are lifelong learners, always be kind of curious and learning the next skill set. So one of the reasons I did it was an opportunity for myself to learn about how people got into those positions, what that typical industry is like, and just be able to collaborate. Maybe I can bring something to the table from a GTM perspective, and they can bring something to the table from either just financial awareness, building a startup, being a first time or a serial co-founder. So one was just being a lifetime learner. The other is about just figuring out a way to give something back to the community or first time or co-founders. I've learned a bunch of things as being both a practitioner as an engineer at the beginning of my career within the infrastructure and developer tooling space, to sales engineering, to being a first-time sales hire, to now leading a sales organization and partnerships. There's a lot of material out in the form of books or blogs or podcasts. Some of it's very high level, and I wanted to be able to give something back that's very actionable. Like, you're looking for, have this specific problem, based on my experiences, here's the 3 things I would recommend. I would avoid these things. And you don't need to, anyone can be an advisor in different capacities. So there's GTM advisors, there's financial advisors, but just filling a gap within the industry or within the knowledge set of a specific individual or a community. And I've done that in a couple of different capacities recently.
An advisory, is it that they give you a part of their startups shares, or do they pay you monthly for that?
There's a couple options. Some I've had a retainer fee, others I've had advisory shares, others just been pro bono and just kind of access to their network and to their community. So it depends. I've gotten the advisory shares before, which is nice, and one company got acquired by a previous company I worked at, so that turned into actual dollars. There's only so much time in the day, so it's if I am incentivized too much on the advisory, I would get distracted from SpaceLift. So it's more about just being able to give back, myself learning and getting access and building in the community. And selfishly, a lot of people in those communities have C-suite titles, and they're probably people that I want to speak to, or people that they know that may want to leverage a tool that I've been lucky enough to kind of sell.
For the VC/investment side of things, seems like you had a couple of exits. I'm wondering, apart from the salary you've received at the various positions the last couple of years, where did you acquire that capital to invest in all of these beautiful startups?
So a large portion of it came when I was the founding AE at a company called Armory, as a YC company that was commercializing open source Spinnaker. I was there 2.5 years and was their founding AE and top AE. So I had a lucky career there. That gave me some ability to reinvest or invest, whether it's in the form of an LP or direct investment. Others, I used to work at VMware for a number of years. If anyone's familiar with VMware, they changed the dynamic of how companies operate within data center, and they're really the predecessor to cloud. The stock there did extremely well over the years.
Would you define it as luck? Like, what part of it did you control there?
Within VMware, or within Armory,
Both.
or
Yeah,
both?
because I speak to a lot of folks that are like, yeah, I was lucky, but when you think about it, you made like good decisions, right? Like, life is about making a series of good decisions. So like, what brought you onto that path? Did you had a hunch when you were interviewed that, oh shit, this founder, he is really smart, they're gonna go far? What did you control there in those decisions?
So from when I joined VMware, I was lucky enough to get an internship at Black & Decker when I was in university and undergrad, and happened to fall into the team that was at the time a system admin tier 3 team, and got to learn about things that aren't taught in university, of back office IT, things like Microsoft Exchange, Active Directories, different security aspects, virtualizing the data center from physical hardware to virtualization with VMware. And it was, I guess, on the bleeding edge of that technology, and got to learn that as a customer for about 7.5 years, and then another 2 as a partner and subcontractor for VMware. I knew VMware was, they had a great culture and great ecosystem. I wanted to find a way to work there and have that on my resume. Large organization. So during that time at VMware, I was lucky enough to move into a handful of different roles. but I took it upon myself to network internally and build my own brand to navigate those halls. So I think people should build their brand. And it's important to, you carry your brand with you, whether you work at company X or company Y, your brand stays with you throughout your career. So I think that's a key piece and element that I've kind of carried with me. Other times, I think from that VMware, I made a lot of network connections from there. That I had the opportunity when I went back to business school at North Carolina, VMware supported that endeavor. And then when I finished, they relocated me from the East Coast. I grew up in Baltimore. They relocated me out to the West Coast, to the Bay Area a little over 5 years ago. So luck is what you make of it. It's, you just can't roll. It's not just rolling the dice and gambling in the casino.
Yeah, sometimes it's also hard, when you're successful, to kind of ask yourself these questions and reflect on that. But if I may, you started technical, then you went into sales. So that's already like particular and already gives you an edge. And second, you found the super niche, which is VMware. So that is what made you like special and highly valuable. Plus the fact that you're in the valley, which is my next topic. How can one survive so long in the valley with like the rent prices, the real estate prices, and everything that comes with it? I mean, there's definitely advantages to being there. We know that there's so many legends or important people on this planet that are in SF and in the Silicon Valley. They're probably responsible for 20, if not 30, if not 40% of the world's well-being, or the other side of that medal. So like, what are the advantages and disadvantages of staying in the valley?
No, great question. So when I was thinking about relocating to the Bay Area, I lived in Baltimore, fairly inexpensive place to live. I was working from home. My parents thought I was crazy to relocate across the country to work from home again. I think the advantages are like the location of it. You're in the center of a lot of innovation and culture of experimentation. You never know who you're going to sit next to in a bar, in a restaurant, walking down the street. Avoid the Tenderloin if you're ever there. It's kind of became a little bit dangerous, but other than that, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. So one advantage, just yesterday, the CEO of SpaceLift was in town doing investor meetings, and I was able to just hop into Uber, went into the city, met him at the hotel, and we just did an all afternoon planning session. Today and tomorrow, there's conferences almost each and every week at Moscone Center. So people are constantly coming to the Bay Area, where I don't have to get on a plane and travel to them. They're coming to me or to the city, and it's easy for me to either Uber, drive, or take the ferry into the city. Plus, not all, but most of the VCs are in the Bay Area. So there's a lot of capital that is in the Bay Area. There's a lot of people that are giving back. Plus, you have two major universities. There's more than that, but you have Stanford and Berkeley, which are pumping out talent and engineers. So it's still kind of the center of startup mode, even though a lot of people have left since COVID. A lot of people are coming in, but
you just mentioned Tenderloin, and a lot of people nowadays are upset with the lack of leadership by the mayor of SF, and like lots of homelessness, lots of drug addiction in this part of the neighborhood. Are people entitled to feel that way? Isn't that like first world problem? I mean, I'm in Mexico right now. Yeah, homelessness is not the same, but don't folks have better stuff to do than complain on homelessness, or is it like a real problem there?
In certain parts of the city, I think it is a real problem. There were a lot of kind of camps created during COVID, and it kind of manifested its own issues. I grew up outside of DC, but I'm definitely not a political person. But I saw it firsthand during COVID when I moved out of the city to Sausalito. There was a homeless camp a park in Sausalito. One day there was a tent. The next week there was 10 tents. The next week there was 30, and they organized, and it created a dangerous atmosphere in there. Since then, someone caught a tent on fire. There was an explosion. they since bulldozed that area and flattened it out. So it's a little bit of uncontrolled chaos, and it's unfortunate, but I think there's still a bunch of beautiful parts and reasons to be in the Bay Area and San Francisco.
Right. I also saw it firsthand in my native Montreal when I came back there since COVID. I also saw these little camps and, just it's being out of hand, when you walk in the streets and there's zombies everywhere and crackheads. Yeah, but I also think we have like a very primal reaction to that. And it's like, yeah, get this out of my way. While these are deep societal problem that we need to take time and probably come up with better solutions that are more win-win than get out of my way, right? Because these folks need a place to live. Your investments, you did quite a lot of them. What's your thesis behind each, and what do you expect from them? Do you expect a return in 5, 10 years? Do you expect 1 out of 10 of your investment to be highly successful? What's your thesis?
No, great question. So my thesis has changed since doing it, but the main thesis has been around serial entrepreneurs, open source software, B2B SaaS. That's the space that I know the most about and live and breathe. So I can see and draw patterns and conclusions from some of the data while working with those founders. There was a few investments that I made that were purely, I wanted to put some money and capital into that space to learn about that industry. And there's no better way to learn. It's an adult Las Vegas, if you will, is placing some investments. I expect returns in kind of 7 to 10 years from the investments I made as an LP. So those are doing fairly well. It's almost like a mutual fund of investments. There's a bar to be able to kind of get into play into those. So it's not for everyone. The other investments I made, it's like playing darts, maybe 1 out of 10, 1 out of 15, right? If one hits. But I've gotten, outside of the capital, I've gotten a lot out of it myself, just by getting introductions, making friendships with some of those founders, learning about it. We have conversations, we go out to lunch. So it's not just, yes, like the money and capital is important, but it's more like it's building that network. It's helped me build my brand over time. And if I ever need a connection to them, I see on LinkedIn, if we're mutually connected, they're happily make a warm referral. And I happily do the same to anyone that's in my network as well. So it's a give get.
Love it, Ryan. Thank you for showing up today. That was a cool interview. I learned a lot in short amount of time. Where can people find out more about you?
Yes, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. That's probably where I do hang out the most. So you can find me on Ryan D. Cartwright on LinkedIn. You'll see a picture of me sailing in the Bay Area. That's one of my passionate hobbies on the side, as well as scuba diving. So if anyone's a sailor, anyone wants to scuba dive, hit me up. You could also find me if you happen to do a trial of SpaceLift to solve an infrastructure as code cloud deployment problem. You'll probably hear from me and my team. So I welcome you